unpack the absolutely high-stakes clash that just unfolded out at the San Francisco Bay Area Stadium.
Right from the jump, we had a classic David versus Goliath scenario on our hands. On one side, you've got Austria, right? A seasoned European powerhouse with a deeply ingrained, super aggressive identity. And on the flip side, Jordan, stepping onto the World Cup stage for the literal very first time. But the real pressure hanging over the pitch, both of these squads were absolutely desperate for points just to keep pace with Group J's absolute titan, Argentina, who already bagged a dominant opening win. Every single pass mattered here.
And right from the first whistle, the tactical contrast was just stark. Austria's Ralf Rangnick deployed this suffocating, high-intensity press, basically trying to choke the life out of Jordan right in their own half. But Jordan, they didn't panic. Actually, they set up this incredibly disciplined defensive structure, essentially daring Austria to try and break them down, all while keeping their wide players coiled and ready to spring these dangerous counterattacks. It was a totally fascinating chess match of conflicting philosophies.
So that dynamic really set the stage for the first act of the game. Austria assumed total command, hoarding a massive 75% of the possession. They controlled the early territorial exchanges, pinning Jordan deep into their own penalty area. But as you probably know, possession doesn't always equal penetration. Despite constantly having the ball, the European side really struggled at first to carve open that stubborn, deeply organized Jordanian backline we were just talking about.
That is, of course, until the 21st minute. You know, when a systematic press just can't break through a low block, you really need a spark of individual brilliance, and man, the sheer pressure finally found a release. Midfielder Romano Schmid picked up the ball from distance, looked up, and totally bypassed the entire Jordanian defense with a sensational, curling long-range screamer. It flew perfectly past goalkeeper Yazid Abu Ilayla straight into the back of the net. Just absolute magic and exactly what they needed to pick the lock.
But hey, Jordan was far from finished. If you thought they were just going to fold after going down early, you'd be entirely wrong. Right after the restart, they nearly equalized instantly with a fierce strike that rattled right off the crossbar. So while Austria kept piling on the pressure before halftime, those surgical Jordanian counters absolutely served notice. They were a looming, incredibly potent threat that Austria literally could not afford to ignore.
Moving into the second half, Rangnick clearly felt the game getting uncomfortably tense, so he looked for an attacking spark from his bench, bringing on veteran forward Marko Arnautovic. And you know, that substitution actually marked a massive historic milestone. Just by stepping onto the pitch, Arnautovic instantly became the oldest player to ever represent Austria at a FIFA World Cup. It's a huge testament to his longevity for sure, but it was also a clear signal that Austria needed some calm, experienced heads to close this game out.
So that brings us to the crucial pivot point in the 50th minute. Just 5 minutes after the break, Jordan completely shocked the stadium. Launching one of those lightning-fast counterattacks we highlighted earlier, forward Ali Olwan produced a moment of absolute magic. Cutting inside, he curled his brilliant effort right off the far post and in. Boom, 1-1. And with that, he scored Jordan's first ever goal in World Cup history. Just an incredible, historic moment that totally altered the emotional rhythm of the entire match.
Suddenly, the dynamic shifted entirely. Jordan actually started matching Austria in the central areas of the pitch, playing with this immense, sudden wave of confidence. They even started really testing Austrian keeper Alexander Schlager, and this was the exact question hanging heavily in the California air. Could the tournament debutants actually pull off a miracle? Were we about to see them take down a European powerhouse in their very first appearance?
Well, let's look at the final stretch, because this is where the harsh reality of top-tier international football really sets in. Entering the final 20 minutes of a grueling, incredibly high-paced match, legs get heavy, minds get tired. This is exactly where Austria's sheer squad depth finally began to take over and dictate the game. Having the luxury to bring on fresh, top-quality players against an exhausted opponent, that's so often the ultimate deciding factor in tournament football.
Looking at how it all played out, you can really see the escalating chaos. We had the early Schmid screamer, then that historic Olwan equalizer. But then came the real turning point. The decisive, absolutely heartbreaking blow for Jordan came in the 75th minute. Austria's intense, relentless pressure finally forced a tragic own goal from Jordanian defender Yazan al-Arab. It restored Austria's lead to 2-1 and honestly just completely deflated the underdog's momentum.
The final moments then played out with this almost brutal inevitability. First, Jordan desperately chased a second equalizer, naturally throwing bodies forward. But by doing so, they left themselves completely exposed at the back against those fresh Austrian attackers. And that vulnerability ultimately led to a chaotic sequence deep in a stoppage time, resulting in a 90-plus 11th minute VAR penalty.
It's basically a textbook breakdown of what happens when a team is forced to abandon their defensive shape to go chase a game.
And who else to step up to the spot with total composure, completely ignoring the immense pressure and the absolutely deafening stadium noise, the history-making veteran Marko Arnautovic smashed the penalty home. He firmly slammed the door shut on any hopes of a late Jordanian comeback, sealing a hard-fought 3-1 victory and securing all 3 of those vital points for the European side.
Bringing us back to the big picture here, this result means Austria successfully matched Argentina's opening win. Both teams now sit pretty with 3 points, which perfectly sets the stage for the rest of Group J. Austria definitely survived a massive scare today, but at the end of the day, they did exactly what they needed to do to stay right in the thick of the race for the top spot.
So, to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought. We've just seen Austria's suffocating possession and Jordan's lightning counters really put to the test, but the final boss level still awaits. Which of these intense, highly distinct playstyles actually has what it takes to crack Argentina's armor in the matches to come? Can a high-intensity press disrupt the South American champions, or is a disciplined, surgical counterattack the real secret to pulling off a massive upset? Definitely keep that in mind as we watch the rest of Group J unfold.